how registries allocate address space, and ISPs and end users announce it. So IPv6, how much is being used? How much is being allocated? Notice that, for instance, in ARIN, we have a fairly steep allocation curve in the last couple of years, and that announcements are moving up. People are, you can't say it's used, but it's announced, which is the closest we get from use today. Okay? Let's go the other way. APNIC, you notice it's linear. This bump you'll see in everybody, that was a change in policy. This is the change from 35s to 32s or whatever it is. And so you see a bunch more prefixes announced in that area. Wait a minute, it should be the other way. Whatever. There's change in general, socially how we do it, so we see a bump. You see APNIC is a fairly linear curve, and look at the announcement flattening. So since about 2002, in APNIC, people have been getting more and more address space, but not a lot of them have been deploying it. Okay. In RIPE, whose business is essentially selling address space because as a new member, you get it. There's this curve going up, again, flattening in actual announcements. Okay? In LACNIC, again, steep curve for allocation, flattening in announcements. AFRINIC, same story. Okay? Just to give you a feeling of the delay between allocation and announcement time. The vertical is when the first announce was heard. The horizontal is when it was allocated. Okay? And it's nice not to see too many people announcing before it was allocated. And we have a fairly consistent story here. But the same thing's true with APNIC. The same thing's true with RIPE, except we seem to have some eager beavers in RIPE. These folk in the lower right seem to have jumped the gun there. And LACNIC and AFRINIC similarly. Prefix allocation, the distribution of allocations. We see, again, steep curve for RIPE. Just pumping that stuff out. Next comes APNIC. Sorry. I guess that's why it's a steep curve. They're panicking there. And but look at the difference in ARIN. Again, a hockey stick curve. And this isn't a sales projection, which is where we're used to seeing hockey stick curves. This is actual delivery of IP addresses from ARIN to customers. Okay? We see the same thing in deployment. If we believe that announcement is deployment, we see flattening at RIPE. We see flattening with some rise in APNIC. We see serious uptake. You know, the first derivative is positive in our region here, and flatten the other two. So what we're seeing is, if we get the nearest we can get without, we want to play some more sophisticated games, the actual utilization is, though we're behind the other two big registries in deployment, we have a steeper curve. Okay? And this, just so you know, the data analysis is done from Route Fubes and RIPE RIS data, but Morley Mao and Yingwing at UMich. Okay, and then you get a second one just for free, if I can figure out how to operate this. Let's see, if I do this and then do this, will it work? Woo. I am not a sophisticated Windows user. Let's do kind of a similar thing for legacy data, totally different analysis, different grad student. The same institution, UMich. Aaron gives us a file that says, these are the legacy allocations. Okay, how those are defined, et cetera, we don't know. We look at BGP from route views. We see 4 kinds of things. That prefix is announced, perfect match. Okay? What we see is the allocation is a supernet of what we see in BGP. So these folk fragmented it or only announced part of it, the turquoise folk. These folk announced something bigger. A significant number of those are likely somebody was given 2 24s and they're announcing the 23. Okay, we haven't done breakdown analysis of that. And then the unmatched data. No, we see no announcement at all for the legacy address space. Notice this is fairly flat. Somewhere's on the order of 56% of legacy space is utterly unannounced. Pardon me. 56% of legacy prefixes by count. We're in a day or so we'll have the analysis broken down by 24 equivalents. Okay. Now let's look at the mask length. Okay. So we see the clump at 16 and we see the curve up at towards the old C space. Here's the classic A space. Okay. And so 24, we expect this spike. Those of us that remember is Dr. Postel took 24 and sliced it and diced it out to the cable modem providers. And so there are a lot of announcements from within that space. Okay. B space. I don't know why it starts at 140. That's kind of the data we got. Should start a little further to the left would have been my guess. Okay? Or maybe that's the first unannounced we saw. And the universities were in 128, 129, et cetera. Class C space. There's what swamp looks like, boys and girls. And again, the folk at UMich. So, and that's the story.